I appreciate you all for being on today's call. So what I'm going to share with you about today, and today's webinar is going to be about 30 minutes, all right? And I want to share a portion of my program all about your value proposition when working with buyers. So in other words, what we're going to talk today about is your value proposition on why a buyer chooses to work with you, whether they're calling on a sign, whether it's at an open house, whether it's from your sphere, whether it's from an internet site. What we're going to talk about is how do we get them to choose you over any other agent out there, and not just choose to work with you, but to actually say, yes, I want to come meet with you. I'll sign a buyer broker agreement. I am your buyer. So that's what we're talking about. Now, if you like what you hear and you want to sign up for the 12-week program, it starts next week. I will share with you how to do that at the end of the call, or if you want, you can go to mapscoaching.com now, go to group, you'll find it. And I will, at the end of the call, share with you a coupon or a promo code where you can actually save 20% on the course. But all right, let's go ahead and get started, and let's talk about the value proposition. So before we do that, I want to look at what are buyers' perceptions of real estate agents. And it's not just real estate agents, but us as buyer agents. Well, some people feel they don't need us because they can find homes online. In fact, what buyer have you worked with recently that hasn't already gone online and set up a search and been researching properties? So if they're doing that, well, what do they need you for? Or how about this? Their perception of us as a buyer agent is we're the person with the magic key to open the door. Do you ever feel that way sometimes, that we're the tour guide, that really all they're using us for is to get easy access to a house? Or how about this? Buyers' perception of us is that we're the middleman and we add to the cost of the transaction. Well, if I just go directly to the listing agent, I'll get a better deal. Or why don't I go work with an agent who's going to rebate me their commission? Why would I want to work with you? Or how about this? The consumer knows more than we do. They're online every day looking at property. Whether it's at work, whether it's at home, whether they're in line at the grocery store, they know the market better than you do, because they're looking at it more than you do. So what value do you bring now? Or how about this? They feel that they can negotiate for themselves better than you can negotiate for them, right? So why do they need you? Or how about, because of all of this, like I already mentioned once, you should therefore rebate me your commission. I can find homes on my own. I can negotiate for myself. All you are is the magic person with the person with the magic key to open the door. Therefore, I want a piece of your commission. That's what we're up against in this market, and we're going to continue to be up against that. So again, what's your value proposition? What can you say to combat all of that, and not only have them say, wow, you know, I want to work with you, I want to sign a contract with you, and do I have to pay extra for what you're going to do? What does that value proposition looks like? So think about this. What happens, because here's one of the biggest mistakes that agents make, is that they set the buyer up on a search. So a buyer calls you, you meet them at an open house, they're referred to you, and you set them up on a search. Have you ever stopped to think what that actually now does? Well, here's what it does. So you set them up on a search, and keep in mind, they've already been online looking at real estate. So you've now set them up on a search, and they're seeing the same properties that they've been searching for on their own. And what they do is they quickly come to the conclusion, you have no value. And what even more so, they prefer the format on whatever web portal they're looking at than your MLS portal. So that's what happens. And what they also see on those web portals, we won't say their names here, right? What they're also seeing is they're seeing coming soon listings that you don't have access to, right? Have you seen that? Have you seen them show up on those portals? Have you had buyers come to you and say, hey, what about this property? And you're looking in the MLS, you can't find it, you can't find it. So you go, you Google it, and there it is on one of the web portals. And so they're seeing those, it's not showing up in your MLS search, and again, they come to the conclusion that you don't have access to all the available inventory. So can you see here the challenge with the current market that we're in? And it's not going to change. So here's what I want you guys to start thinking about. Does the current inventory, does all the inventory show up online? Think about it. So in your market, of all the homes that sell, what percentage of those homes never show up online? Because the buyer assumes that everything shows up online. Yet what I know is that every day in every market, there are properties that sell privately without ever showing up online. Think about it. How about for sale by owners? Do all of those show up online? No. How about probates? A lot of probates sell privately. Do all of those show up online? Nope. How about those properties selling at the courthouse steps? Do those show up online? No. How about inter-office sales? Have you ever experienced in your office where a deal comes together because someone gets up and pitches a new listing and another agent says, wait, I might have someone for it, and they make a deal happen before it hits the MLS? Those don't show up online. How about when an agent double in something through, let's say, a coming soon, or they put the sign up early and they find a buyer and they make a deal happen? That may not have shown up online. So what you have to understand is in a lot of markets, anywhere from 10, 15, 20% of the homes that sell, they never show up online. They're selling privately. So therefore, those buyers out there who think they don't need you because they can find all the available inventory online, so they think, right? They're now missing out on a good segment of the listings that these are the ones that are the best deals. So I strongly believe, and this is what I'm getting to, I strongly believe that our job as buyer agents is to not only show our clients the homes that show up online, but to show them all the available inventory, even those that don't show up online. So if you guys were selling real estate back in, let's see, 2007, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, if you guys were selling real estate, or even if you weren't, do you remember during that time a lot of buyers, and you'd hear about it a lot in the news and in the media, all the shadow inventory? Do you guys remember that? What that shadow inventory were the properties the banks were holding on to that they hadn't yet released out to the market. And every buyer that we would come across, they would ask us, hey, do you have access to the shadow inventory? Now, why would they ask that question? Simple. They, like every buyer, they want to know about the homes that nobody else knows about, because they want to avoid the competition and they want to get the best deal possible. Now, think about it. In this market that we're in right now, is there a lot of quote-unquote shadow inventory? Are there a lot of foreclosed properties? Are there a lot of distressed sales out there where people can get a steal on? Maybe in some markets there's a few, but for most markets there's really not that many. Yet I believe that the shadow inventory does still exist. And I believe the shadow inventory are simply the people who are thinking about selling their homes that are not yet on the market. So think about it. In every neighborhood, there's someone who's thinking about selling that's not yet on the market. So how about your neighborhood? Think about where you live. Whether you live in a complex, whether you live in a subdivision, whether you live in a particular area, think about it. There's someone in that neighborhood who wants to sell their home and they're not yet on the market. I mean, think about this. By the time a for sale sign goes up, by the time something shows up on the MLS, that seller has been thinking about selling their home for at least 3 to 6 months. Just like buyers, right? Buyers don't just wake up one day and say, all right, we're buying a house today. No, they start thinking about it. And we know this, from internet leads, from sign calls, from open house leads. We know that on average, buyers start the process 3 to 6 months before they're actually ready to buy. Well, sellers are no different. Sellers also start the process 3 to 6 months before they're actually ready to put their home on the market. And so this is the shadow inventory. It's the next listings coming on the market in that particular neighborhood. So you take a given neighborhood. Again, think about yours. How many listings are on the market right now? How many came on in the last 30 days? Well, chances are, if you're thinking, well, hey, yeah, there's probably 3, 4, or 5 listings on the market right now. Of those, maybe 4 or 5 are new listings. Well, is it safe to say that in the next 30 days, there's going to be another 3 or 4 or 5 listings coming on the market, and then in the next 60 days and in the next 90 days? Absolutely. So those are the shadow inventory. All right? That's the shadow inventory. Now, as real estate agents, we know how to find homes that are not yet on the market, so we can help our clients avoid the competition and get the best deal possible. So I want you guys to look at that slide for a little bit, because that right there, that's your script. How great when you're working with a buyer, when you can have a conversation or you can share with them, hey, if I could help you find a home that's not yet on the market where you could avoid the competition and get the best deal possible, is that something you'd be interested in? What buyer is going to say no? What sign call would say no to that? What open house lead would say no? What referral, what internet lead would say, no, I don't want to find an off-market property? The answer to that question for every buyer is yes. Yeah, if you could help me find a home that's not yet on the market where I could avoid the competition and get the best deal possible, yeah, I'd be interested in learning more about that. Well, that's your script. That's what you have to understand. That's what you have to internalize. That's what has to come out of your mouth every time you're working with a buyer. Now, just as you would present your marketing plan to a seller to win listings, you must have a marketing plan in place to present to buyers to win their business as well. It's so interesting? When you get a listing lead, when an agent gets, no one on this call, of course, but think about the average agent out there. When they get a listing lead, they're tripping over themselves because they can't get out of the office fast enough to go and meet with that seller. And when they meet with that seller, what are they doing? They're presenting their marketing plan in the hopes that the seller will choose them as the listing agent, right? In other words, they're sharing with them their value proposition. Yeah, of course they talk about price, of course they talk about commission and all of that, but at the end of the day, the seller wants to know, what are you going to do to sell my house? And based on the agent's answer, will determine whether or not they earn their business. You guys follow me on that? You know what's interesting about buyers? How often do buyers do the same thing? How often do buyers interview agents to see which agent has the best marketing plan to find them a home? They don't. And look, at every year when Gary stands up at family reunion and he goes through, I think it's the vision speech where he goes through the home buyer and seller survey that NAR does every year. On average, buyers interview one agent. And by the way, that's not an interview. That's a, here's what I'm looking for, and the agent sets them up on a search. So it's no wonder that the perception that buyers have of us is that of no value, because we never put ourselves in a position where we can explain what our value is. The standard operating procedure, your standard operating procedure, should be, when working with a buyer, to treat them exactly the same way we would if they were a seller. So we wouldn't work with a seller without a signed listing agreement, would we? No, that would be, we'd be lunatics. Yet, why do we work with buyers without signed buyer-broker agreements? Or if you want, call it a signed buyer listing. That's all it is. That's what Gary says in the Red Book, in the MREA. A buyer-broker is just a buyer listing. So your goal should be to treat every buyer lead the same as a seller lead. Meaning your goal is to set an appointment to meet with them so you can present your value and then have them sign a contract. That's the goal, right? That's what you do with a seller. Why do you treat buyers differently? And the reason most buyers think we have no value, again, is because we never take the time to tell them what our value is. And I don't know if it's because as an industry we don't know we have value. I really don't understand the philosophy behind it. All I know is that you treat a seller the same way you treat a buyer, or vice versa. And it goes back. Buyers just don't ask that question, what are you going to do to find me a home? They say, here's what I'm looking for. So if we never meet with them, and all we do is set them up on a search, it's no wonder that they have no loyalty to us. It's no wonder that they want us to rebate their commission. It's no wonder that we'll show them 10 homes and then they'll buy something with their brother. All right? So let's talk about our marketing plan here real quick. All right? And I apologize, you have to write this down. And this is, I call it your exclusive buyer plan of action. And again, this is exactly what you're going to present to a buyer when you meet with them. Here's my exclusive buyer plan of action to go above and beyond the MLS to help you find a home that's not yet on the market so you can avoid the competition and get the best deal possible. So think about it. If we go back to that scenario that I first talked about your neighborhood, about your complex, about your area, knowing that there are future sellers in that neighborhood, what can we do as a real estate agent to go out and find them? I mean, think about it. What could we do to go out and find those sellers before they hit the market? We all know what the answers are. So let me give you a few ideas. How about number one, we can telemarket, right? There's plenty of software programs that will allow us to call through that neighborhood looking for someone who's interested in selling their home or knows of someone who's interested in selling their home, right? So that's step number one. Let's first telemarket. All right, number two, if we can't reach them by phone, let's door knock, right? Why don't we canvass through the neighborhood, going door to door with a flyer about the buyer's needs and letting the sellers know that we're looking for someone who's interested in selling or knows of someone in the neighborhood who's interested in selling. If we can't reach them by phone, let's now get out there and canvass the neighborhood with a simple flyer about a buyer. And this, by the way, I'm going to go through a list of eight things on this action plan. But I will tell you, door knocking is probably number one. As far as what will yield you the most results is definitely door knocking. All right, so let's go to number three. So remember, number one is telemarket. Number two, we're going to door knock. Number three, direct mail. We can send out a mailer to the entire neighborhood, letting everyone we know, or everyone in the neighborhood know, that we have a ready, willing, and able buyer, and if they're thinking about selling, to call us. And you know what we're doing with that direct mail piece? All we're doing is taking that little flyer that we door knocked with and sticking it in the mail to everybody. So here we are on point three, and we've already got pretty good coverage. Would you agree? We've telemarketed, we've door knocked, and now we're direct mail campaign. You know, I would like to think that, you know, the word is getting around in the neighborhood that if someone wants to sell, we've got a buyer. All right, let's go to number four. Write down for sale by owners. We will make our buyers aware of any for sale by owners we come across as we market through the neighborhood. Now, I know what you're saying. Well, the for sale by owners are online. No, they're not. Not every for sale by owner is on forsalebyowner.com or the MLS or Zillow or whatnot. You would be shocked at how many for sale by owners you come across that are not online. Because the reality is, if you're calling, if you're door knocking, if you've got a direct mail piece, if there's a for sale by owner in that area, you're going to come across them, are you not? Yeah, you better believe it. So we'll let our buyers know about those for sale by owners. How about number five? Expired or canceled listings. So over the past few years, would you agree that there have been many homes that have been listed, but for whatever reason, they didn't sell? Maybe they listed it 3 or 4 years ago when the market wasn't as strong as it is now. And now that prices have risen, maybe they can finally sell it for the price that they wanted to. And on top of that, they could do it without the hassle of having to put their home on the market. So we can look in that neighborhood, we can research all the expired listings or canceled listings for the last 5 years, right? Cross-reference them to make sure they didn't come back on the market and sell, and we could call them and say, hey, I know you've been on the market in the past. It doesn't look like your home ever sold. I've got someone who wants to live in the neighborhood. Are you still interested in selling? That's an easy conversation. You can door knock it. You can leave a flyer on the doorstep. Again, they're going to get you a direct mail piece. So now we're up to 5 items we have on our marketing plan. Number 1, telemarket. Number 2, we can door knock. Number 3, direct mail. Number 4, for sale by owners. Number 5, expired listings. And we're not done yet. What I want you to think about is when you're presenting this in your buyer consultation. And here they are, they're thinking that all you're going to do is set them up on a search like everybody else. And now you've already gone through 5 powerful things that you can do. Do you think they're going to start to be excited about it? You better believe it, right? Do you think any other buyer agent they talked to over the phone shared with them about this plan of action to help them find a home that's not yet on the market so they could avoid the competition and get the best deal possible? No, they did not. All right, so let's now move on. Number 6, pitch session. So a lot of markets, have pitch sessions every week before the caravan. So is there an opportunity for you to go to the local pitch session, stand up, and pitch your haves and needs or your needs and wants to the agents in the market? So now you're letting all these other agents out there know that you've got a ready, willing, and able buyer in this neighborhood, and if they know of any listings, to let you know. Yeah, that's powerful. Or you could even say, well, if I don't have a pitch session, you have a market center, do you not? How many agents are in your market center? Do you do a team meeting? Do you have an office intranet? Do you have a way where you can communicate to the 200, 300, 400 associates in your market center that you've got a buyer in a particular area, and if they have a listing coming up, to contact you? All right, so we're going to keep that as 1 point. You can even make it 2 points, but for the sake of my 8, I have that combined as 1 point. Pitch session or your office. How about number 7? Your own database. So you guys are all great agents on this call. You guys probably all pick up the phone and do a little lead generation, I hope. Think about how many people you talk to on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis. And how many of those people do you have conversations with about them potentially wanting to do something? Every one of those conversations where they at least raise their hand and say, yeah, we're thinking about doing something, every one of those conversations is an off-market opportunity. So if you're to look in your database, into your CRM, to your lead database, right, how many leads do you have in there? Because every one of those listing leads, every one of those people that's raised their hand is in reality an off-market opportunity. And then how about the last point I have, number 8, the neighborhood specialist. So you know that every neighborhood is probably farmed by some agent. And how easy is it to go in the MLS, go back for the last year, see who the dominant listing agent is, and assume that they're probably farming the market or farming that neighborhood, and to reach out to them and say, hey, it looks like you do a lot of marketing into this neighborhood. I've got a buyer who's looking to move in. Do you have any listings that are going to be coming on the market that would fit this criteria? So, you know what's great? And so, look at, are there more things you could do? Absolutely. Could you do social media? Could you look at notice of defaults? Could you look at, there's all sorts of things that you could add to this plan of action. I just wanted to give you the 8 that I feel the most strongly about. But again, go back to the fact that you're now presenting a marketing plan. You're now presenting value. You're now giving them a reason to say, yeah, we want you to do that for us. Now, what we also know is that there is a 95% chance that the home they buy shows up on the MLS. I mean, we are, for most markets, you know, that have, you know, 5,000, 10,000, here in San Diego, 20,000 agents part of the board, you know, the deck is stacked against us. But the fact that we are willing to go out and implement this marketing plan, that's what they want in the agent they hire. And you know the best thing about this marketing plan, about this buyer plan of action? So in the MREA book, Gary says there are 3 L's. There's leads, listing, and leverage. Nowhere in there is the word buyer, right? Listings are leverage, buyers are not. Yet, I disagree, because if you take your buyer and you use this marketing plan, you now have leveraged them to go find more listings. So if you actually did this for your buyers, if you actually truly did this for each of your buyers, you called the neighborhood, you door knocked it, you direct mailed it, you looked at any of the for sale owners or the off markets. If you actually implemented this plan, what's the byproduct? You will find listings. There is no way you cannot. So now what you've done is you've leveraged your buyer to go out and find listings for a good reason. We're not just calling through the phone book looking for leads. We're calling a neighborhood for a very specific reason. People will talk to you. People will treat you differently when you're actually calling as part of your customer service to help your buyer. That's what I love about this. You're leveraging your buyer to go find more listings. All right, so people always say, all right, well, before we even get to the buyer consultation, before we even are able to pitch this, how do we first set the buyers up to understand what we're talking about? You know, what do those scripts look like? So I'll share them with you. Now remember, this is recorded, so if you want to go back later and listen to it, you can. If you want to go back later and transcribe it, you can. If you want to sign up for the course, you'll get it all. How's that? But here's some of the scripts that I like to use. So I first always like to question buyers. I'll say, you know, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, did you know that 20% of the homes that sell in our area never show up online? And by the way, yes, it's probably that high. Right? Did you know that 20% of the homes that sell never show up online? So if we could find you a home that's not yet on the market where you could avoid the competition, you could avoid the multiple offer situations, and we can negotiate you the best terms possible, would you be open to meeting with us so we can share with you our exclusive buyer plan of action? So that's one script. How about this? Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, I can appreciate that you're using the internet as a tool to find your next home, and you're missing out on 20% of the listings. In other words, there's 20% of the homes that are selling at the best prices without any competition. In fact, here right now in front of me in my office, I have a list of over 20 properties that are not yet on the market that I'd be more than happy to share with you about. When's a good time for you to come by the office so I can go through these homes with you? Well, I don't have that list. Yes, you do. You absolutely have that list. If nothing else, pull up the expireds in that area that never sold. There's a list for you. If nothing else, pull up all the leads that you've talked to over the last 30, 60, 90 days. Again, there's your list. You all have this list already. You just have to think about it and aggregate the data in a way that's useful. So, what if they object and they say, well, just send me the list? Gosh, I certainly appreciate you asking that question. As you know, the market's extremely competitive right now, and our competition will love to get a copy of our list, which is why we don't pass it out, as we keep these private for only our clients. So when can you come by the office and I can share it with you? Or they might say, well, what you're saying all sounds great. We'll think about it. We'll get back to you. Hey, no problem. Can I also share with you what else we do to find our buyers' homes that are not yet on the market? We have what we call our buyer plan of action. So instead of waiting for a listing to show up on the multiple listing service, we actually proactively go out and we find the sellers in the area that you want to live who are not yet on the market. So as my buyer, you're going to know about the listings before anyone else. Would that be helpful to you in this market? See, what buyer is going to say no to that? What buyer is going to not, be curious about what it is you do? And here's the best part about it. Once you present this plan of action, the close for the buyer-broker agreement is simple. So Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, in exchange for everything that I'm going to do here outlined in my exclusive plan of action, all I ask is that you commit to working with me exclusively as your agent. So can I count on you for that commitment? And they're going to say yes. And then they say, or they might say, well, how much extra does this cost? That's the great news. It doesn't cost anything extra. In fact, we actually get paid by the seller. So why don't we go ahead and sign the contract so we can start working for you? Now, one of the biggest and the most powerful things to this whole plan of action is that when you start to share the results you're getting with them, so what you do, let's say they're in a certain neighborhood. Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, I was able to find 130 phone numbers for XYZ subdivision. In fact, I called through them and I talked to 26 people. Here's what I found out. Well, you actually did that? Yes, I'm executing my marketing plan. Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, I'm going to be door knocking the neighborhood today. In fact, I created this little flyer about you and what you're looking for. I just wanted to take a look at it real quick before I hit the doors. Oh, and when you're done, by the way, I was out in the neighborhood today. I talked to 12 people. Here's what I found out. Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, I want to make sure I have your mailing address because I'm going to be sending out the direct mail campaign, and I want to make sure you receive it at the same time the neighborhood does so you know when they get it. Or how about this? Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, here's 3 for sale by owners. Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, I went back through the expired and canceled listings. There were 40 that expired over the last 5 years. Of those, 32 came back on the market and sold. Here are the 8 that never sold. Take a look at these 8. If there's one in there that would work for you, I'd be happy to do everything I can to connect with that seller. So as you're starting to share with them the actual results that you're getting, they start to spread the word. They're at their office. They're out there talking to their coworkers. Hey, you're not going to believe what my agent's doing for me. They're with their family having Sunday dinner. You're not going to believe what my agent's doing for me. They're at their bowling league, their softball game. Hey, you're not going to believe the call I just got from my agent. He's actually out there knocking on doors for me. And very quickly, you're going to create a reputation and you're going to get referrals. Regardless of whether you ever find them a home off market or not, it doesn't matter. It's the fact that you were willing to go out there and be proactive to do so. All right, so with that said, that's what you learn in the course, right? That and 11 other awesome chapters. So it's a 12-week course. I go through my whole buyer playbook. The cost for all 12 weeks is only $297, right? Very, very inexpensive. And if you use the promo code MEGA17, you save 20%. So where do you sign up? Go to mapscoaching.com, go to group, go to Mega Buyer Agent Skills. The next course starts next week, next Thursday the 28th, 11 a.m. Central, or I'm sorry, 11 a.m. Pacific, so double check the time online. But I would love to have you in the course. I'd love to see you on the calls. I hope today's call was valuable for you guys. I hope you got some piece of knowledge out of here. Again, the recording will be sent out. I appreciate you all for being on the call today, and I hope to see you in the course next week. See you, everybody.
Hey, Aaron, you did great.
Thanks, Jasmine. I can't, for whatever reason, I can't end it on my side.
Okay, well, I've already ended the recording, so you're all set.
Okay, cool. Thank you, Jasmine.
All right, have a good one. Bye.
Bye-bye.